Hello, welcome to the Women Who STEM the Gap podcast, an IIT Delhi and Co-Impact initiative. I am Ridhima Sharma, and I'm excited to bring you the insights and experiences of some incredible women in STEM. In this episode, I will be speaking with Gayatri Buragohain, the founder and executive director of Feminist Approach to Technology, a network of young women led collectives empowering marginalized girls and women through STEM education. You can learn more about their work in the description below. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us at STEM the Gap. Just to start off, could you please tell us a little bit about your journey in STEM?
For me, it was pretty clear from a very young age that I have to choose a STEM career because of my parents' expectations from me. I was from a middle class, first generation kind of moving out of home and working kind of family. Because my father's brothers and everyone and my mother's side were more like, staying in their own places and farmers and working locally. And we were traveling around. And my parents obviously had a different idea for their daughters as well. They didn't have a gender perspective right from the beginning. So at the early age, what I saw that they put a lot of expectations from us in terms of our education. And because my sister couldn't do well and she would get a beating, I was so scared. I used to study hard and aspire to do exactly what they wanted, doctor or engineer. So that's where my journey was set. But one thing I would say that I was not interested in it as such. It was more like it is a set path if you want to be a favorite child. But when I landed in engineering college, I would say as a student who had excelled previously, I started to really go down. And I was in a hostel in a different environment, and that's where I started to face the realities. I also started to explore my sexuality, of course, and how that changed my relationship with my parents as well. I realized that how adolescence and the changes that we go through, so physically, socially, emotionally, changes our course of life. And otherwise easy path that I could have probably taken forward with full support from family just turned into something that eventually led to me not finishing my engineering in 4 years, rather taking 6 years and starting to work early. Parents feeling very disappointed with me and not caring much and stuff like that. So, for me, it was like the whole idea of why I should be in STEM never occurred to me. It's just something that I had to do. But in the journey, I realized that, this was not made for me, not because I'm not good at it, but because there are so many other things going in my life that I can't focus on this.
Thank you so much for sharing this. And I mean, you already spoke about so many different things that led to you actually joining engineering. And are there any one or two, say, specific barriers or challenges that you experienced and during your education, and how did you tackle them?
Yes. So in my childhood or in my school time, the challenges with education was not much. I would say I was quite competitive and I was always kind of ahead. I found it very easy to understand in science and maths. I was curious and I had an inclination, but I never paid attention to it. Let's say put it that way, because I come from a background where we never think of social issues. We just live it. And our life was quite complicated because we were also growing up in very orthodox family during a time of conflict with a lot of things going on in Assam at that point of time where I am from. So for me, engineering college is where I really realized. One is that first thing that I realized is that hostel timings were so strict for girls that you have to be inside your gate by 6 o'clock for us, whereas boys, there is no timing. So boys are able to go out to the market where we buy books, which is very far away. We have to take our college bus and travel for 1 hour from Jalukbari, one place, to Pan Bazaar in Guwahati. And they would be hanging out in the evening around the same market in different places, buy books, do different things. And we had a specific time where we have to rush and buy books, or we have to ask the boys to buy them for us. The laboratories were there. They were broken. Nobody could use them. At the time, our college quality of education was not so great. And we didn't have a proper lab. And we as students, very few of us took initiative to do something about it. And we were inspired by a new IIT opening up nearby. But when we did that, the laboratory could be open till late night. But for me, special permission had to be taken because I was a woman. And a lecturer had to guarantee my safety to my warden. And boys had to escort me to hostel every night when it gets late. So these things, other girls didn't even try to do this. I at least found 4 boys to partner up with. Other girls didn't even speak to the boys. At that point of time, girls make teams with girls and boys make teams with boys. And I got this opportunity because I had these 4 boys who were willing to support me in that way, and a professor who was willing to support me in that way. And I had the initiative. So these are some challenges, and other challenges, the amount of violence that is there in the campus on girls, and physical, mental harassment in every way, and sexual. I remember there was a couple where one of our friends, there was violence between the couple, sexual violence within the couple. And my friend, my classmate, her mother had brought her to my room asking for help so that she can at least appear exams. And they didn't file a case. So I was protecting my classmate from her violent boyfriend while appearing my own exams. So these kind of things, these kind of things happen, and rapes in the campuses where when I took the forefront in kind of speaking up in any way in front of others, then I'm labeled as, different names and name called and stuff like that. So that affected me hugely. I became very lonely, and I went through a huge mental breakdown during that time. And I lost a lot of friends and trust. And I lost the will to study or do anything in my life. And I had to research from that. So for me, it's not one issue. It's a whole lot of issues. And the fact that I fell into the wrong trap or a wrong relationship when I needed solace or companionship, being so lonely away from family, and being as misunderstood by family as well as the bad woman, then I went even through more troubles. So what I'm trying to say here is that there are a lot of unspoken topics. Every time we talk about issues why women are not being able to move forward in a STEM career, we talk about, they need role models. They need specific bridge courses or extra this or childcare support or this care support and whatnot. Let's talk about the realities of a child growing up with violence and in a toxic environment where women are just, as you grow from being a girl into a woman, you're just suddenly someone else. You're an object rather than being a person, and you lose all your rights. And somehow everything that's happening around you takes so much control of your life that there's no place for you to think about your career. Even for a privileged person like me, at that point of time, it was not possible. Think about those who are underprivileged, and they go through even worse situations because of the social constraints that the society has when there is lack of resources and lack of education as well.
No, absolutely. All of these are extremely important points that you make, and rightly so, that it's not just any one thing. It's not just creating some sort of bridge courses and things like that. There's a whole host of issues and infrastructural, structural, social, cultural, and violence issues that women have to deal with. How can one, obviously this is very, very difficult. I wouldn't say how do you move past it, but how do you learn to kind of sit with it and move forward? Because you have been doing such amazing work with feminist approaches to technology, and we'll get to that in a minute. But how do you move forward?
Yeah. So that's why programs designed to promote women in STEM, for me, seem to be looking only at one single small dimension, small part of the whole story. Whereas for me, to really change the dynamics, change the situation, it's important to create those role models, not just expect they would appear from somewhere. And to do that, handhold from a very young age, create the community of support from a very young age, and create the agency to be able to at least ask for help and create the community to help. So that the journey is not about one workshop or one program. It's about a lifetime of growth. Because without that, the leaky pipeline that we say, leaks are everywhere. And there are only a few leaks that have been identified. Sit and hear each girl's story and we'll realize that the whole pipeline is so leaked. It's like you have to really for a handhold throughout. And leadership, agency, and some STEM skills have to go together if we want to break this larger barrier. As your program says, STEMtheGap, if you want to close the gap. And other thing is address the trauma. So at FAT, that's why what we do is our programs have evolved over multiple years, starting from a very small bootstrapped tech center to moving slowly from individual to volunteers, and then slowly to have staff members. Over many years, of at least 10 years, we have worked with people and tried as much as possible to not let them go. Where we could not, of course. There are things that we cannot control. But where we could, we continued to handhold. And today we have so many role models in the organization who are working within the organization as well as outside the organization and contributing in their families, communities, and society at large with their own story, and in many ways taking local action also for others. So that's the kind of change that I feel we need. We can't just say that it's on the women alone to just keep doing, like I have to get there in some STEM career. It will take a whole community. And we have to create the community.
Absolutely. And just going in that way, and my next question was going to be around how you started FAT, like what motivated you to start this wonderful community, like you call it, a community of support and mentoring and leadership. Obviously, you've talked about how vital the interventions are that you're doing, but if you could share one or two stories of the kind of work that you all have been doing, that would be great.
So actually, I'm a kind of person who starts kind of dreaming big and just does it. And right from the beginning, the vision for FAT has been an organization that is led by community and of a huge scale. And it's taken 15 years to get there. And the scale is not yet there. Scale is on the way, but it's taken 15 years to become community led. But the vision has been this from the beginning. So to tell you how it started, I'm a big dreamer. I've always been a daydreamer kind of person as a child. And I have funny stories of what kind of dreams I used to have. But I came to Delhi in 2004 along with my then husband, now ex-husband, and a child whom I had taken responsibility for until his education was over. He was 6 or 7 years at that point of time. And with the dreams of, finding a job, because I had already, my engineering had been spoiled, right? I was 2 years behind my peers, and I can't tell you what I remember of that course. I can't tell you what I really learned. So I can't really get a job in engineering. So maybe I would at least get admission into a good management college like IIM, and then I will fly from there. That was the dream. Unfortunately, life always has twists and turns, and I got pregnant, and in such a way that my due date was just around the time when CAT exams happen. And that pregnancy period was again a turn in life because no money, no job. My then husband also didn't have a proper job. And how will we bring up a child? After my child was born, I started working with a non-profit organization called Kriya. And they are a feminist leadership building kind of organization. But my job was only to take care of their systems, computers and internet and websites kind of thing. And I was just the person who used to, take the longest time to fix a small problem under the table because I love to hear the conversations that happened over the table. And it was all new. I learned about feminism for the first time in my life. I learned about women's rights for the first time in my life. I never knew that there is something called an NGO. I come from a hole, basically, coming from Assam, conflict-ridden place and all of that. Like people have the idea, Northeast people live in trees. We don't live in trees, but we do. At that point of time, we were very, very isolated. We didn't know what's going on in the world. So for me, those conversations, listening from what the colleagues were talking about and working on, those sparkled an entire reflection that, now I realize what happened, what my life's trajectory has been, what my sister has gone through, what my mother has gone through, and how it is all a part of system. And this desire to want to talk to women about technology just came. And one of my colleagues, her name's Vinita, and she is right now co-lead of a funding organization called Urgent Action Fund, South Asia, I think. I'm forgetting exact designation, but she was very kind to me and she let me have some time with a group of grassroots women leaders to talk about women in technology. And I just asked, what do you know about technology and how do you use? And the thing came that हमारे घर में computers हैं, हम उसकी सफाई करते हैं, उससे ज्यादा छुएंगे तो बोलते हैं लड़के और उनके पापा की खराब कर देंगे. And हम खूब हंस रहे थे. And this conversation. And how gender plays a role in access to technology came out through this lovely conversation that really inspired me to do something in this area. Well, I tried to find jobs in that area or even tried to see if I could do something within the organization that I was working with. But when I realized that there is no such scope and there's no such organization looking at women's rights and technology in that way, so I just decided I'm going to start it. And the name came to my mind because the whole question that I was asking was, what should be a feminist approach to technology? And then that should be, my approach was to first talk to a number of people to ask, what do you think? I tried to meet a lot of feminist leaders. Unfortunately, a lot of them rejected and did not meet me at that point of time. I was a newbie with no idea of what happens in this metropolitan places like Delhi. And I had no education background, of course. I was just a techie trying to be feminist kind of. At the same time, I also met some industry leaders. I traveled to Bangalore to meet organizations who are working in the tech space like IT for Change and at that point of time, alternatively, Law Foundation. And I basically tried to build my understanding of what is a feminist approach to technology. And in that entire journey, I also volunteered in different places. I went to Muskan on a grassroots organization in Indore or Bhopal, sorry. Bhopal, yes. Where their strategy is to bring adolescent girls and have them live in hostels for education so that they can at least complete education. And there I went and did a computer class and I realized that actually this is where I want to work. So I came back and I started working with girls around my house, whose parents were mostly daily wage earners working in the Lajpat Nagar area. And from there, I'm talking about 2008 here, 2007 and 8. And I registered the organization with the hope that one day it will become a national level organization. I created a board of 7 people from 7 states with the help of some very important people who led me there. I was earlier lost. Someone who has played huge roles. One is Pramada Menon, who was my ex-boss at Kriya. And she just asked one day, what are you doing with your organization? I was like, who are your board members? I was like, I don't know. And she's just said, go talk to Monisha Behel. And I went to Monisha Behel and she just questioned me left and right. What are your ideas? Tell me this, that. I felt like questioned in a police station, but I answered with all my energy, with my baby in the hands of my husband, and I'm talking. And then she said, okay, I will help you. And then she suddenly calls so many people, and suddenly I have a board of 7 people from 7 states. That's how this works. When one mentor, one person decides, I'm going to help you, like, they can move mountains. They can just connect one after another person and make it happen for you. And that's just suddenly happened for me. But from the day one, I wanted this organization to be led by the community, and I didn't know how to, and I didn't know what to do. I just knew that this is the space where I want to work. And everything that I started was on the basis of experiments, and everything that I did involved the participants themselves taking in decision making. So the first tech center was started by the girls who had attended the first workshop on computers that I held for them at my residence. So everything was done in a way where someone is showing my way. The young women and girls are showing me that this is what we want, and I just keep doing what they ask me to do. I spoke to a lot. I also held a lot of consultations on what is a feminist approach to technology, but I didn't go that route very far because I guess the soul attracted me because of my own journey and my own life trajectory and realizations. I just was attracted automatically to work with adolescent girls and young women. And as more and more participants started to take more and more lead in decision making and implementation, the model of the organization started to emerge. And here we are.
So basically, what I'm also sensing is that you always wanted one to have an organization grounded and deeply connected to the community, led by the community. And from the very start, your work, the workshops that you were doing, other things involved an element which would invoke a sense of ownership among the girls themselves, right? Having a sense of ownership of whatever it is that you all were doing, whether it was a tech center class or some other project. Am I getting this correctly?
Yes, that's true. Yes. So everything with and for me, it was like I was trying to do exactly what I felt like someone should have done for me. I would always put myself in that person's situation when I'm hearing, and when I'm doing a workshop, hear the situation, I was just go into my childhood, to that state, and just really relate to what happened to my life and what happened, what would I have wanted in this situation. And I just ask, listen, and I do. I know that there are a number of things that I couldn't do. And I think that kind of built a culture within the organization, that it was not just me. Initially, it was only me, but slowly new and new leaders were emerging and everyone was doing the same. And we learned a lot of tough lessons also in the process. But the whole point of FAT is that it's for the people, for the young women and girls, and they design it for themselves. So right. That kind of logic has prevailed from the beginning till date.
So based on, of course, it's been many, many years now. So I would love to learn from you, and I'm sure people who listen to this would also want to learn what have been some of the more, say, successful approaches, feminist approaches to encouraging more girls to join and stay in STEM.
To say that we have promoted, we had a success in promoting women into STEM careers would be an overstatement, because we can actually count in 10 fingers how many alumni have really entered hardcore STEM fields. But what we have huge success in is leadership building, with tech-enabled leadership building in young women who have the spirit and the leadership qualities to drive the mission of FAT. And they are all working at FAT in some way. And we are hoping this number will keep increasing soon. So the most successful strategy that I would say is that creating that community. Earlier, we used to say in every tech center, we have to mobilize only once for the first batch. From there on, it's a human chain that follows, because if the participants have the clarity to understand why this program is important for them, and they show some changes in themselves, automatically parents and family members and nearby people, as well as girls themselves, feel like this is something that we should join in, and there is a lot of request. So the role models that are within the community themselves, or sometimes within the family themselves, are the most effective. And so that strategy has worked, of creating community. It has its challenges also that I'm not going to talk about right now, but nothing is easy anyway, right? But there are always, if you want to gain a certain success, there is a lot of challenges which we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Other strategy is that something that we realized after learning a very hard lesson is taking care of well-being of each person. We are still not pros in it. We are still struggling. I can tell myself that I have gone through major well-being challenges, and that's something that I realize I did not pay attention to overall in the organization, because I was myself struggling so badly, and how that affected the organization is something that we clearly know. So participant to the trainer, to the regular employees, to the everyone's well-being is something that we are working on. And it has its very good effects, I must say. This is because the challenge that we face in our work is mainly well-being issues. Girls, if they're not physically, mentally, emotionally well, how can they move forward in STEM or think of a career, or how can they even look at education or learning something? So that's one thing that we are working on very hard. Other strategy is learning through practical methods. We refer to textbooks, but we learn through doing and seeing and observing. And we've seen that most of the children that we've worked with have, of course, they must have some different kinds of learning abilities and disabilities. And we are never diagnosed. Even for myself, I sometimes doubt. I find it very difficult to read and write, and I still haven't found out what the reason is, because I've never gotten it diagnosed, right? So with children, we see that, and we've seen so many people who have done much better because of the way we explain things, and we do things and learn by doing. So that's a strategy that has worked very well. And lastly, creating so many opportunities for the girls to speak up and represent themselves and others. The confidence building and fear from the outside world reduces, confidence increases. And that is something that has worked. I think I can keep on listing many people.
No, this is all really, really insightful. And of course, there's no one-stop solution for anything. And of course, everything that you mentioned, my next question to you was going to be, how can we connect more girls who aspire to a career in STEM with role models? And you kind of already answered that by creating that community at tech centers where there is that human chain effect, that you're mobilizing for one batch, and then because of their experiences, they are able to mobilize the third, fourth, fifth batch. So that, of course, seeing role models, seeing mentors within your community, seeing girls like you doing the kind of things or learning things that you aspire to, I think can be a really great way to have more, say, peer-to-peer mentorship. But do you have any other thoughts on mentoring? And of course, one question which is connected to this is, what role can digital mentorship play in this scenario?
When we began this meeting today, I asked if I could speak in Hindi and English, but yes, I noticed I'm speaking mostly in English, and that's where my comment lies. To get more and more women coming into STEM fields, we must realize that most don't speak English, and while I say this, I realize this is what I have done and I do it. It's kind of something that we don't have clarity in India, I guess, with which language we want to go into, because Hindi is also not even a language that reaches a lot of people. But yeah, so one is that we have to, if we go into digital media, we must think of like, yeah, this is Hindi channel, this is English channel, this is Tamil channel, this is Punjabi channel, because it's that hard, it becomes so difficult. So I guess I understand, but this is the limitation with digital mentorship. Otherwise, I think the digital mentorship can at least fill a huge gap, which is the availability of role models in terms of knowing their stories. But even if you watch a video of that ENIAC 2 programmers, girls get so excited, and this is such an old landmark story. Most women don't know about it. ENIACprogrammers.org is the link. You could go there, you could watch the film if you want, and you could know the story yourself. Yeah, so why don't we have such films in India? You know, to know the story of what women have done and are not acknowledged for is such a huge booster. So digital media is important, capturing those stories and bringing it forward, number one. But in terms of doing online one-to-one mentoring kind of things, I feel this works mostly for those who speak English. For those who don't, some radical thinking is needed. In terms of how to reach more girls and how to push more young women into STEM, help them get into STEM, I think a lot of solutions are related to creating more workforce in the sector itself and seeing that women has such huge potentials which is not acknowledged. But let's look at it from the other way around. A just and equal society is not possible if technology is designed by a few minorities who are occupying power, right? And for that, you know, if we are thinking that girls, women, or any other marginalized communities, whether it's different sexual identities or whether it is religious minorities or any other community, if we are hoping that we would have more representation in technology, we cannot expect that they will come through merit. Through merit, it will take ages. We must look at creating options for everyone in such a way that those have merit can at least find the way to show their merit. There is no way to show their merit. So there's no access to education itself. So I feel that a lot more grassroots programming would be needed. Otherwise, the discourse is very skewed. The discourse is all about people who are already privileged and wanting to create diversity within themselves. That's a whole different kind of story. My area is that let's talk about bringing the marginalized voices into the technology. And if that is the case, a huge wide cast net at the grassroots is needed.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you, of course, because you've worked with so many young girls, you must be getting a lot of questions, a lot of girls, women looking up to you to learn about leadership, about STEM. What have been some of the most asked questions and that you might have gotten? And what are some of the key pieces of advice that you share with the girls and women that you work with? Or pretty much anyone who wants to come up to you and ask you for a piece of advice.
Okay. Actually, yeah, this is a funny question. Why? Because I don't really go usually. I'm not usually out and talking to people. The people that I talk to on a day-to-day basis is all the people within FAT, the young women and girls that I'm working with, as well as my other colleagues, older colleagues. And I have chosen to do this because I went through some questions internally about where I can contribute and how I should contribute my time. But if I meet someone when I do go out, and if someone asks me this question, this is what I would say. Don't box yourself into anything, even if it is just STEM. When I hear STEM, and more women in STEM, I fear let's have more engineers and scientists. And that's not the point, I feel. Yes, of course, we need more engineers and scientists. But is that enough? No, that's not enough. Because, the problem with boxing is that's the thing. No? We have already been boxed into being women and men. And now we want to be women in STEM wala box. That doesn't help, because actually STEM is everywhere in everything we do. And we need so many STEM interventions right now with the current challenges that the world faces. Climate change is here, of course, and let's not talk about other challenges. But climate change itself is such a huge threat that our communities are facing already and will be facing furthermore. And it's not something that only scientists and engineers can solve, right? Even a panchayat leader, a teacher, or a doctor, or a sanitary worker, or anyone needs to be STEM-enabled leaders. So that's what I would say, is that let's not box ourselves into anything. Let's look at application of STEM and look at being leaders who solve the problems that we see around us.
Absolutely. That's really wonderful. And yes, it's true. There is so much in our day-to-day lives that requires at least a basic understanding of tech. So, last couple of questions. One, what are some of your, say, personal goals and aspirations now that you are at a different stage than you were when you first started out with STEM? Of course, you've come a long way in your own work, in your life. And so what are some of your goals and aspirations today when you look, not necessarily for the 10, 20 year thing, but maybe even like for the next few months? And where do you see FAT going over the years? And what are your visions for FAT in strengthening women's leadership, STEM leadership, and perhaps even access to education and workforce, like you mentioned?
Yes. I'll first start with what I hope for FAT. Actually, that's a part that I'm very excited about right now. We are going through a transition to becoming a fully young women-led, community-based collective organization. There's heavy words, but basically what it means is that we want program alumni to be able to run our programs in their own communities as entrepreneurs. And we are trying to create a new organizational structure to enable that. And we have always stood up for young women's leadership. I was a young woman once. Now I am not. It's time for me to move out. It has been long due, but the leadership that the community wants is a collective one. So we are creating that. And what I hope is in the next 1 year, I hope to be transitioning fully out of FAT as an executive director. And hopefully, I hope FAT to be not just successful in running as a fully young women-led organization, but also spread. And the model of FAT is for building role models locally. So I hope that works. That's my biggest excitement for now. For me, myself, I feel like I've learned a huge deal, not just in working, but in life generally, because people say there needs to be a boundary between life and work. I don't have any boundary. I live my work and I enjoy my work like my life. So for me, I'm looking to move forward to something I would enjoy more. I am now more curious about entrepreneurship building, because adolescent girls, when they grow up to become young women, they need money in their hand. To be the leader that they want, they need resources. And they have the ability to earn the resources, but there are no jobs, and jobs are not so empowering. So entrepreneurship is something that I want to focus more on going forward. And I'm hoping that it would be yet another exciting learning journey like it has been for the last 15 years at FAT. Let's see where this takes me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Do you have any final thought that you would like to share? Anything that perhaps I missed out on asking you that you really wanted to share?
Yeah, I think I want to share one thing. When I said initially about how I was just destined to be in some tech career because my parents chose it for me, I don't want to give the misunderstanding that I was also privileged. This option was only for me, not for my sister. And not for my cousins as well, in many ways, probably. I was just someone who who had the potential of making the family very proud. Let me be very clear on saying that. And you get certain privileges with that potential. And second thing I would just want to say is that STEM, even though I'm not working in a hardcore STEM field, I still consider myself a woman in STEM, not because I promote more women in STEM, but because I love STEM. I did not choose a STEM career thinking out of my brains. I did what my parents told me or my heart told me with my boyfriend and all. But I realized that, I'm not a hands-on person. I don't even like to do other things hands-on, like work around the house also. But science is exciting for me. And I have tried to be a science technology entrepreneur. I had at one point started a company called Joint Leap Technologies. And I did really well in it also. But I chose to be in the non-profit. So what I want to say is that STEM is not just a career. What I want to say is that STEM is just an enabler to do whatever your heart desires. I wanted to make this point because what I said at the last question, don't box yourself in. I want to clarify it further that STEM is an enabler. STEM is not just a career path.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for speaking with me. Thank you for listening to this podcast. At STEM the Gap, our goal is to bridge the gender imbalances in STEM through multidisciplinary research, policy, and practice. If you enjoyed listening to this conversation, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel and stay connected with us through our website and social media pages. Links in description.